Welcome to the Mobile Workforce Podcast, where we sit down and have real conversations with business leaders that have been where you are. During these interviews, we'll dive into what it takes to improve systems and champion processes that maximize performance. Each week, our trailblazing guests share their experiences and understanding of the workforce to help inspire change, challenge our thinking, and share what it takes to successfully travel the road to profitability. Now here's our host, co-founder and chief evangelist of About Time and WorkMax, Mike Merrill.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. I'm your host, Mike Merrill, and we are sitting down again with the famous or infamous, however you want to look at it, John Meibers, the vice president at DelTek plus ComputerEase is a construction management software system. And John was on episode 20, and we discussed the most common accounting mistakes made by construction companies and their CPAs. So if you haven't listened to that episode, we encourage you to go back and take a listen. Thanks, John, for joining us today. Looking forward to talking with you again.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me. It's always good to chat.
Awesome. So one of the main things we talked about last time we had you on was the Ultimate Construction Accounting Guide. Can you just give a little bit of a background on that report for the listeners that may have not heard episode 20 yet?
Sure. So, we get asked a lot of times, especially on the, maybe the smaller end of the contractor market that we service. And, how can you help us be a better contractor and help us put together kind of a how-to or a playbook, best practices for construction accounting? And there's a lot of things that those of us in construction maybe take for granted. Those of us have been doing it a while, but there are things that, especially as you're starting maybe a new construction company or, even if you've been doing it for a while, it's always good to hear what the best practices are. And this guide kind of walks you through what you should be doing. And we feel very strongly, I know you do as well, Mike, that construction is very unique. And the industry we service is very unique. And there's some things that are unique to our industry that don't apply in other industries. So we want to be able to walk you through this guide on what you should be prepared for in construction accounting, not just accounting in general, because there's a lot of good, folks in accounting that have a lot of knowledge, but don't have that construction specific, feel to it and knowledge. And that's what that guide brings to the table, is kind of guides, you through the construction accounting process.
That's awesome. It's a great resource. So if I were to summarize that guide, is there one main theme or takeaway that you think people will get from that when they walk away?
Yeah, I think, what kind of tool you should be looking for, the things you should, help you in your business, and how to be forward thinking and being able to forecast and project and predict where you're going to go, how to use the information you have available today to predict where you're going to be, because the biggest challenge for a contractor is spotting a problem before it occurs. And if we can do that and we can minimize the damages, the loss, minimize the risk, we're going to come out on the right side of this thing.
That's great. It's a great guide, and again, very intuitive and insightful for those that haven't read it yet. So I encourage you to do so. One of the other things that you talked about in the guide were basically it listed off 9 mistakes that are common. Are there any of those that you saw kind of repeat themselves in 2021? What's the main things that you're seeing companies still struggle with out of that list?
Yeah, I think that the biggest one, and it's always been the case, is assuming that the dollars spent on an item or a job as a whole, the percentage of dollars spent is equal to the percentage of the work that's done. And that's the biggest misconception, is that if I've spent half of my budget, I must have done half of the work. And that repeats itself over and over and over. And it's really important that it's important to know that you spent half the budget, but then in parallel to that, okay, well, how much work did I do for half of the budget that I spent? And very rarely, if ever, is it the same. So that's a mistake that people unfortunately make. It because that's the easiest way to look at it. Well, I spent half the money, so I must be 50% done. And in most cases, in almost all cases in construction, very rarely true.
Yeah, so you're basically talking about a WIP report, work in progress. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. The WIP report is the backbone for a contractor, and that's what we typically see, especially those growing contractors struggle with. Maybe they're going to get bonded on a job for the first time or need to get bonded, and the surety underwriter wants to see not only a financial statement but the corresponding WIP report that backs that up. Maybe you're going to the bank for the first time to get a line of credit, or maybe you're going to sit down with the banker and increase your line of credit. And unfortunately, as we all know in construction, with cash flow being what it is in a lot of cases, we need that line of credit a lot of times. And the first thing the bank wants to know, I want to see your financial statement, but I want to see the corresponding WIP statement that goes along with that. So that's something that is a smaller contractor. A lot of times you're not dealing with that. You haven't been required to produce that WIP report, and if you haven't done that, don't understand the process. You really need to learn how to do that, and that's a lot of what we cover in that construction accounting guide. Is how do you go about implementing a good, sound WIP process within your organization?
Yeah, great direction. Appreciate that. So what ways are technology helping companies to create that accurate WIP report?
Yeah. So, the ability to get data from the field real time, and real time job costing is at the center of everything. And whether it's getting time in on a daily basis, obviously, Mike, that's what your company does, and at WorkMax, is a great tool to allow for that. But I need to be able to get that data in from the field into the accounting solution, into the ERP solution back in the office real time, so I can look at the job today and not have to wait until payroll is run a week from today and before I get updated information. So if I have real time information, and that starts with coming in from the field, then I'm also, when I'm out in the field, I'm updating what we've done. So it's not. I got a crew and I have 5 people on a crew and we all worked 8 hours a day. Well, great, that's 40 hours. Well, then as a crew, what did we produce? And because very rarely are the units one to one. It's not that, okay, if we're on the same crew out there, Mike, it's not like I did a unit and you did a unit. It's collectively we did X number of units. So in addition to getting the time in, I need to report those units, and that unit drives the percent of work that I've done, and then obviously the hours drive the percent of the budget that I've spent.
Nice. So you're saying let's get some real time accuracy for the actual time and attendance, but on the production side, maybe the foreman or the crew leader, he's going to put the total in for the whole crew, and then the WIP report and the job cost reporting will be able to break up those units per guy. And
It's all driven from that. You get production reports. So right away, as the site super, I know that, okay, we were supposed to do 10 units an hour, and today our crew only produced 8 units an hour. I know I'm going to be behind right there, and then that all feed, because then the WIP report can be driven off of the units. It'll say if we've done 10 of 100 units, we've done 10% of the work, and then the hours being recorded will say, well, but you've spent 20% of the hours. We've got a problem.
love it. So you're saying if you've got a tool, a mobile application that can collect real time numbers, labor, et cetera, then would you run those WIP reports daily, weekly? How often should companies be running those?
I think best practice, I think, is weekly. You're going to look at the information daily, certainly, and look at the job cost report on a daily basis. But most, I always tell people at a minimum you should be doing it monthly. You need to prepare a WIP report monthly. And then, but best practices are probably biweekly or weekly. The best in class contractors that I work with are doing it weekly. They're having weekly production meetings, taking all that real time data, sitting down and going through job by job, and doing the WIP process on each job and determining where they're ahead or behind, and obviously then focusing on the areas where they're projected to be behind schedule or underproducing.
Great. So now as we're kind of wrapping up 2021, we're getting into 2022. Are there some key roles or gaps in accounting teams or in companies, accounting staff that you're seeing gaps in, or areas that are maybe underserved from a labor and effort standpoint?
Yeah, I think I think there's a big, and not just in construction, but I think in all industries, there's been a big, kind of, so we're coming out of the pandemic. There's a lot of people, moving in the workforce. The Great Resignation, we talk about, and there's a lot of people moving, and that's certainly in construction. I mean, I've getting more and more people that have lost key accounting people within their organization, and that's really tough because once you have somebody that really understands your process, and especially if it's a manual process, if you've been doing it, and I've seen a lot of contractors that have homegrown, maybe they're using a generic accounting system, they've got a homegrown WIP process, and they're doing okay with that. But the problem with it being homegrown is when that person that built that is no longer there, Now nobody understands it. And so we try to make it, kind of a uniform process and use a tool that makes it repeatable. But we're seeing a lot more turnover. Certainly, in the field, we've had a labor shortage in the field and construction for a long time, and I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. But now we're starting to see that as people are moving. I mean, I'm getting calls every day from somebody that used to be a controller or bookkeeper at one construction company. Now they're at another company. I'm like, and now their company is struggling to replace that. So I think we're seeing more of that, people moving jobs, and on the inside part of the business. I mean, we've had the field labor shortage for a while, and like I said, we need to, I know we've talked about some things we need to do to try to improve that. But now we're seeing that, within the construction organizations themselves, they're losing sometimes some key people, which makes it even more important that you have a best in class repeatable process that you can, that you can plug somebody new in that role and have a very short learning curve to get them up to speed.
Yeah, and I'm also hearing you say, the back end system or those processes that you're dealing with, those solutions need to be not only standardized but accessible from wherever the new staff is at. If they're remote, they're in the office. So cloud based or cloud hosted at the very least sound like a requirement.
Absolutely. I mean, more and more companies, obviously, are going to remote offices, which is great. And it's one thing I think that, coming out of the pandemic that we're going to, see not, continue is we have the ability to work remotely. Obviously, the field workers in construction, they have to be on site, but the office staff can be anywhere. And when you open up your, the potential, pool of potential employees to be not just who are in your, local geo, that brings a whole lot of talent to the table that you can bring on, and I think that's, and companies that are adopting that are going to be, I think, you know better equipped to handle that kind of situation when they're not just looking in their 30-mile radius of their brick and mortar office. They're now looking across the whole country for somebody to fill that role, and having their ERP solution in the cloud, which is, certainly one of the things, we've seen a big push to the cloud, not even pre-pandemic, but certainly during the pandemic, and almost all of the new customers we bring on board today are in our cloud hosted environment because they want that remote accessibility, amongst all the other things, security and everything else that comes with that. There's the advantage of being able to work from anywhere, and on top of that, it's certainly far more secure than anybody would be able to do themselves in their own office.
So that's a silver lining of this cloud that's been hanging over our heads. What are some of the dark and stormy clouds that are still lingering there? What are the challenges that you're seeing coming into this next year still?
Yeah, so I think, the biggest challenge in construction is the shortage of field labor. I mean, that's a thing, and it kind of, it's kind of strange how it's all connected. I mean, the people in the field, the people in the office want the flexibility of being able to work remotely. The people in the field want the right tools. If you're asking me to submit my time on a daily basis or do my daily field report as a site superintendent, or as a, just a tradesman out in the field, you I need you to give me the right tool. I don't want to have, there, and we've seen some tools that aren't very useful. We still have a lot of people in construction, they don't have any tools. I mean, I still have a lot of people where we're doing our timesheets manually, or we're texting it on our phone, or we don't have an app to do that. So I think, if you're going to attract the right talent and retain them, you got to give them the right tools, make their job easy. If I'm the site superintendent, let me put in my time, let me fill out my daily field report and click a button and send it to the office. And let me be able to get reports coming back. Let me see my production report, coming from the back office, from the ERP solution, back out to the field. So I think giving them the right tools is gonna allow you to kind of be that best in class employer and attract the right talent, because that's to me, the big dark cloud hanging over construction is the labor shortage in the field.
Yeah, that's a great point. So then also, I mean, you're talking about field data collection. Obviously, that one's near and dear to my heart here with what we do every day. But the other thing about it, especially when you have a more remote workforce, or when you have people in kind of satellite offices, so to speak, they're no longer there. To have that information handed to them. They may not know these individuals. Even if they saw a picture, they may not necessarily know them by name. So tools like facial recognition, biometrics, geofence, GPS, those other things that can validate that data that comes in, no matter where somebody's processing or managing it, would be even more critical, I would think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mike, because it's extremely important. And in today's you know construction company, we don't know the people probably personally like we used to in the past. So right, all those things are really important so that we can, and especially if the office staff is more remote and has the ability to be more remote, you know, they're not going to see these people, but they need to be able to verify that they are who they are, and everything you mentioned with the facial recognition, geofencing, and GPS, all those things just help us validate who we're communicating with out in the field.
That's great. So as far as going into the next year, we talked about kind of what the challenges are, the dark cloud, so to speak, and also the silver lining of being construction companies have become better at working remotely and collaborating remotely. What else do you think is critical as we're moving into this next year that companies really need to get behind and start focusing on more seriously? Is there anything that you could recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and they're all kind of related, but if I'm having trouble with with getting enough labor in the field, I need to be more selective on the jobs I choose to bid on. So I need to really be able to understand where I'm profitable and where I'm not. So I got to get to a level, and maybe a deeper level than what I'm doing today, of understanding my business and knowing where I should focus my efforts, because I can only do a fixed amount of work based on the resources I have. Because almost everybody I talk to will say, "Hey John, we could take on more work if we had more people, but we can't." Well then, okay, well, how are you choosing which work to take on and which work to turn away? So you really need to get to another level with your job costing so that you can make those intelligent decisions and not just say, well, we'll take this work and we'll not take this job. Let's base that on some really sound data. And if you have the right job cost process and system, and are getting enough real time data from the field, use that data not only to manage the job that's ongoing, but use that data to make decisions on what job you go after next.
Oh, that's great. Very insightful. You talk to a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of it's what I love. I mean, it's part of got a whole team of construction experts over here, DelTek plus ComputerEase, and I mean, me, I just love talking shop and love talking to contractors, and it's what I've been doing for 30 some years. And whether it's existing customers, potential customers, we just launched our construction accounting university series. It's a whole series of teaching contractors about the construction accounting practice. So it's kind of it's kind of the next generation of the construction accounting guide. We now have an actual educational webinar series, and the response from the construction community has been fantastic. And these are, there are some existing customers of ours that are attending, but a lot of people that we don't know, and we're just happy to provide that content because I really truly believe as construction goes, we all go. So we're all invested in this construction community, and certainly at the end of the day, we're going to do business with a lot of people, and I know your company's the same way, Mike. But it's just the reason you have this podcast series. It's a great way to just share information with the construction community as a whole, because we're all invested in that, and it's what we love to do.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I appreciate your efforts, and of course, the friendship and relationship that we have, both business and personally. You've been a good friend over the years, many years already.
Yeah, no, it's been a great relationship, and hopefully we're both going to be doing this for many years to come.
I plan to. I don't have any more hair to lose, so what do we have to lose, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on the hairstyle. So yeah, I've already lost the hair, so we're just gonna sit. And to me, I mean, like I said, I love construction. I love the people in construction. I know you and I have talked about this many times. It's just a great industry to be involved with, and I love doing it. I love helping all of them, and whether you're a customer of ours or not, I love sharing these best practices, these concepts, and really help everybody be successful.
Yeah, these are our people. Well, this has been a great conversation again today. I've appreciated it. I guess last thing, is there one takeaway from today's conversation that you'd really like to leave people with before we end?
Yeah, I think just and I hate to keep coming back to the labor shortage, but I have to. But think about, as a construction company, what you can do to provide the best work environment to attract the best people and retain that best talent. And that's everything from technology to just your culture as a whole. And if you do that, I mean, and keep in mind, the best referral source for you are your existing employees who know other people that work in the construction industry, and make your company the company that everybody wants to go to work for. And I think you do that by best practices, the right technology, and all these things we talked about. If you do that, people want to come to work for you, and that'll help your individual construction company overcome that labor shortage.
Great. Well, fantastic advice. Thanks again, John. We'll do it again down the road.
Sounds great, Mike. Great to talk to you as always.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today on the Mobile Workforce Podcast, sponsored by About Time Technologies and WorkMax. If you liked the conversation we had today, or were able to learn anything new or helpful, please make sure to follow us on our WorkMax page on LinkedIn and on Instagram at WorkMax_. And subscribe to the show on iTunes or your preferred podcast platform so you will never miss another insightful episode. Also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review and share the show with your friends and colleagues. Your support means the world to us and will allow us to continue providing impactful information with others looking to improve their results in their business and, in turn, their life.